It's Felician Business Talks with Professor Steve Serge and Professor Doug Muir.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of Felician University. This is Felician Business Talks. I'm Douglas Muir. Happy Valentine's Day, Steve.
All you need is love.
And Steve.
Happy Valentine's Day.
We have Steve Gates here. I think I pronounced his name right.
Yes.
And he is the Vice President of Enrollment Management. He's coming here to speak to the students. But, folks, we have a half-hour program, Professor Serge and I, on this talk radio FBT, Felician Business Talk. The good news is we have a call-in telephone number for you to write down for next week. So we're just giving you a little tease. Area code 201-340-4374. That's 201-340-4374. What I really would like to talk about today, after we talk to Steve Gates in the second half, is the definition of insanity. I've been working now for Wall Street and for nonprofit organizations, hedge funds, private equity groups. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results. But we will save that for the second half here. My famous man, you may have heard of him, we call him TJ in Charlottesville, Virginia, at the University of Virginia. Thomas Jefferson said, "Educate and inform the whole masses of people. They are the only sure reliance for the preservation of liberty." And so hopefully you're not offended easy here, because Steve and I are going to talk about some tough subjects as we do with our students. And we would really, really, and we mean it, love your input. Once again, 201-340-4374. So we are here with Mr. Gates, and he is the Vice President of Enrollment Management. And so just give us a quick outlay what that means.
Sure. So VP of Enrollment Management usually differs among different universities and colleges, but here at Felician, what my job is I work with the admissions team. So that's freshman, transfer, graduate, adult, and international. I work with the registrar's office, the financial aid office, the bursar's office, or student accounts. I also work with our EOF population, our marketing department, and our Office of International Programs. So if you're studying abroad, you're also being worked with by one member of my team. So we're a pretty large area. We are a business, and we're the business end of the institution. We're the marketing and kind of the revenue driving.
I do love that. I really love that you said that, because we're going to be starting a class here, Professor Serge, called Social Entrepreneurship. I'm going to start teaching that at Glasgow University in April. But it's about what they want me to teach is how people and corporations could be socially responsible and also make money, right? The school has to make money in order to give this wonderful education that we give to students. I've worked at the University of Virginia, which is a little different than here, and now I'm here, and I just absolutely love it because it's so family-like. I mean, like, no joke. People go into the dean of the business school, Dean Christofalo, and ask her questions. I mean, that would never happen at the University of Virginia. As a business at Felician, just Steve, Professor Serge, as a business, you've been at other universities, so many more than I. What's our differentiation factor? Folks, everybody has to have a differentiation factor to make sure your company will succeed than the other ones.
Your competitive edge.
Yep, and do a competitor analysis. We can talk about that later. But what is it? What is it about Felician that you see now that's so different than – what schools have you been teaching at?
So first one was Lehman in the Bronx, CUNY. The second one was Baruch in Manhattan on 23rd and Lex, CUNY. Third one was Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles. And now at full-time here at Felician. So I've thought about this a lot, and it's hard to put it into words, but I think if I had to pick one word, it would be caring.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, caring, because we know each student intimately. It's not a huge lecture hall. I just finished writing about 5 or 6 emails about why my students were not in my class. I guess it was hungover from the one snow day. Anyway, I sent an email saying, "Hey, just we missed you today. Is everything okay?"
You know, I had
that
my
doesn't happen at large schools.
No, I had my
can't.
No, can't.
You can't.
Right?
So
You
the
can't.
class that
You
I'm
can't.
teaching, Steve, startup operations for entrepreneurs. A little plug for me. I have 12 students in that class. At UVA, I had 150. So, and it's so cool. I love these kids. But you know, half my class was missing on Wednesday, and I never even thought of that.
Yeah.
So it was the hungover thing.
Yeah.
It's the snow effect.
Friday mornings are tough. I brought in bagels and cream cheese last Friday morning just to get them to come in.
So you say it's caring. So Steve Gage, tell us about how that plays into marketing the company, the corporation of Felician University, which yes is a nonprofit, but it's a company. It's got to make money.
Right. So higher education is one of the most competitive environments out there because if you think about it, there's
yeah.
3,000 plus institutions across the country, and that's just in our country. So we know students that go to Los Angeles, to UCLA, to Alabama, to the University of Connecticut, down the street to Caldwell or other places. So I bet you couldn't name 3,000 different sodas, right? You can name Coke, Pepsi, a couple other ones, right? So we're in a hugely competitive environment because literally everyone can compete for a student in any high school. And high schools send students all over the country to go to school. So I think it depends on the type of student and what they're looking for. One of our biggest competitive edges is people on this campus, working with professors like yourselves and professors in arts and sciences and education and nursing. It's that one-on-one kind of perspective where they get to speak with people who have been in the industry like the two of you. And we found that in our data, our freshman class, over 95% of them had visited campus before they decided to attend. They came to an open house. They came on tour. They met with a professor before they decided to attend here. That's highly unusual. The other places that I've worked at, it's usually high, right? It's usually in the 75 or 80% of students that attend an institution have visited before. But I think the biggest thing for us is coming here, meeting the folks on our campus at an open house. They meet professors, they meet our staff, our faculty, and that's what gives us the biggest competitive edge.
So you know what we did? Well, not we. I'd like to take credit for it, but Dr. Christofalo, she took a 3M sticky note, one of the real big ones, and she put it on the walls of the business school in Mary Martin Hall with a pen next to it. And she said, "Why Felician?"
Yeah.
Now, if that's not customer discovery, I don't know what is. And I just loved it. And what the three things we found was, well, Professor Serge, you were one. Also,
Thumbs up.
Right?
No, he didn't say they said anything good.
So that was one. And then another one was about the professors, that they worked in real industry. That was another. The class sizes, the smallness, and also the pricing. So let's talk about the pricing. So I was just on a conference call with a client before I came here from West Palm Beach, and they're talking about discounts. Doing discounts. I was like, okay, sounds good. You could have a race to zero all day if you wish, but now your salespeople are getting 20% of everything that they bring in, and if they discount it to your break-even point of $4,300, now you're losing. They're like, oh, we didn't think about that.
Right.
So how do you think about the discounts, the financing, how do we give these people the education, keep moving forward, but receive the money? How do we do that here?
So we do work with a group of professionals that are on campus and some consultants off campus that help us to manage our discounts and our scholarships, right? Because we do have a lot of smart students that come here, and we do give away a lot of scholarship money. And then we want to balance that with need, because we do have some students who have a need for additional funds based on their family's income to come here. So that's kind of what's in the secret sauce for us. Every institution does it a little bit differently, so we're very careful what we do. But it's something we work very closely with our finance folks on, and based on what type of student we're looking for, and what type of student is in our mission, and who we look to serve. So all those kind of things go into our formula, and out comes a scholarshiping model and a financial need model, and we go out and recruit students with that. Our highest scholarships range, we have students on scholarship. Our highest scholarship this year goes up to It's like $18,000.
Wow.
But that's for an exceptional student. They're coming out of high school with a 3.8.
Wow.
But about 99% of our students on campus receive some form of financial aid, either scholarship or need-based.
So Professor Serge was talking about the differential that he sees at Felician is caring, right? And he's worked at some pretty big schools. I worked at the University of Virginia, and I didn't see that. What about you? Tell me what schools you've worked at, and what is our differentiation factor here?
Sure. So I've worked at Felician as my 6th college or university.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought you were one other one.
No, I worked at way up north in New Hampshire at a place called Plymouth State University. Then I was at a private Catholic in Boston called Regis College. Then I was at Fitchburg State College, which was a part of the Massachusetts system. Moved to Western Connecticut State. From Western Connecticut, I came to Felician in 2012. I left here in 2014 to go north to take care of some family stuff and worked for a place called Keene State. And then, actually, it's a year this coming Monday that I'll have been back to Felician. So I started on February 19th last year, which was President's Day.
And so what was our differentiation factor? What is it here?
So I think I've worked at larger schools, and it boils down to this place actually cares about students, and you can get in to see a vice president or the president or your faculty members or the dean, right? I had institutions that I've worked at where they were in classes of 100, like you said at UVA. Not as big, 150, but I think that's something that matters a lot to students. At those institutions, they also didn't work with students as much as we do on financial aid.
Absolutely not.
And outreach to students to make sure that they're going to graduate and make it through their couple years here.
Talk about the graduation. What is that number? What is the graduation from the time they start to the time they leave?
So from the time they start to the time they leave, industry standard for higher education is they work on a 6-year graduation rate, and we are working to be above 50%. Now,
is that good or bad?
So that's average, right? We'd love it to be higher. The challenge is the way that the statistics go, because you can manipulate statistics. Stats are based on if you start here and get a degree from here. So if you start as a freshman and get a degree from here, we count you in the statistic. If you start here and you transfer to William Patterson and get a degree from William Patterson, you don't count in our graduation statistics, even though we helped you on that path.
Right.
It's just like all the transfer students that come here. We get about 150 in the fall and another 75 in the spring. Those students that have transferred to us don't count in the graduation statistics from the institution that they started at. So graduation rates are kind of, it's an industry standard. We measure them, but it doesn't always tell the whole story.
I want to talk just a little bit about communications and about free speech and about what's going on campuses.
Sure.
And here I find when I have discussions with my students in the class, and I get very deep, you can imagine.
I can.
And so does Professor Serge.
I can only imagine, yeah.
He
That's good, though. You have to, right?
And I like Professor Serge has a story about saying, don't give me any of this garbage, just talk to me straight.
Right.
Yeah, right.
As it is. These students have to have this. They cannot be coddled. I remember when I was at the University of Virginia and some things were going on that they literally have places for safe spaces. Go to Wall Street, find me a place for safe space. I'll give you $100,000 right now.
I got to just interject. I'm sorry, but my father always used to say, management is not a popularity contest. You need to be fair and respectful. I think our students know we really care about them.
They do.
And that's what sets us apart. So, and I'd be remiss to say it comes from the Felician sisters. They're a great bunch of ladies, and that theme, that culture permeates. That St. Francis stuff goes through everybody, including administrative faculty and staff.
Yeah. Well, Professor Serge, when they were writing about you and Dr. Scardino. Ooh, Dr. Scardino, and I pulled a few of them in, and I was like, well, tell me about them. Is it that their grading is easy? And they're like, oh, no, the grading is not easy, but they're fair, and they're fun, and they bring real-world stuff in. And so that's really the way that it works out. But the communications, when we come back from the break, that I would like to just talk to a little more about the differentiation between the two communications at Felician University and the other universities that you teach at, and what could we do to empower people not to be afraid to speak. So right now you are talking to Felician Business Talk Radio.
If you talk and they will hear you.
We all want our kids to grow up safe and healthy, so we show them how. And we tell them with honest conversations that let them know what we expect. Not just one time, but every chance we get. That's especially important when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. Kids not only need to know the dangers and how to avoid them, they need to hear it often from you. And when it comes to pain medications, opioids, they need to know that they should never be taken without a prescription and never shared with friends or family. It's dangerous and illegal. So talk with your kids and guide them through the challenges of growing up safe and healthy. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
So talk, they hear you. You can do it if you try.
Students, faculty, staff, welcome to Felician Business Talks. This is our second half. My God, where does the time go, Professor Serge? I just don't know.
Having too much fun.
This is just too much fun. Once again, we are going to have call-in. It will be 201-340-4374 will be the call-in number next week, so you're going to have to listen to us again. We're going to go semi-live, 201-340-4374. We'd really like to know what you all are thinking, especially students and faculty and staff, although that we are on the World Wide Web, and you do understand that this is going worldwide. We just want to hear what people have to say about free speech. We were talking about, when we were going to school, Mr. Gates is a little younger than Mr. Steve, Professor Serge, and I. But when we were going to school, it was just wide open. You could say anything you want without repercussion. The verbiage was a lot different. There's a lot of professors that I know, I shouldn't say a lot, 3, that have left from Charlottesville, Virginia, because Charlottesville is getting so sideways, and from the university because they just cannot deal with the sensitivity of faculty, staff, and students. And so they actually took early retirement. And it's such a shame. So what can Felician do to make sure that people and the students feel free, feel safe, and understand? And we're going to start off with Professor Sergi and then work our way out the way.
Well, the pendulum has swung way to the other side, and rightfully so. We've neglected a lot of microaggressions that we're identifying now that people say or think. But
define microaggression just real quick.
A microaggression is when I would say something that I wouldn't think would offend anybody, but it does. Understood. Right? Understood. Now, and it does offend people. It's not that it doesn't offend them. It's just that we don't have that empathy, right? And we're developing that empathy. So free speech, my father always used to say, he who angers you conquers you. And we have to have a tolerance for listening to the stuff that we don't like to hear. And I think what's going on is that you can listen to whatever radio station you want now that agrees with whatever you like to hear. Right. Yeah. And back in my day, there was one radio station. It was, the federal government said you have to have an unbiased reporting, right? So there's some things you heard that you didn't necessarily agree with, but you got to get both sides. If you've ever taken a debating course, you have to argue both sides and be able to win arguing both sides. So if you don't hear both sides, you come to a gunfight with a knife, right? And part of it's people get emotional, they're sensitive, they're hurt, they scream you down. And that's unfortunate because I like to hear those things because this way I know my relative position in the world. And we got to allow everybody to talk.
Yeah. Mr. Gates.
So I think people should feel free to say anything they want, but I think and have any opinion that they want. I think you have to do it respectfully. And that's where I usually look to people and say, listen, you can say anything, you can tell me anything, you can have any opinion that you want, but you have to be respectful to me, to the people around you, and to your colleagues or to your classmates or whoever, right? It's your opinion, and that's okay. Obviously, don't be profane either with the language that you use. So, respectful. I think respect is the key word. And sometimes I think we lose that.
Professor Sergi, you had a great story. You came into my office yesterday and told me about a guy, kind of a burly blue collar guy coming into your office screaming at the top of his lungs when you were the head of management for a BMW, and you totally took the legs out. How did you do that? Tell us the story.
Yeah,
This is communications.
Yes.
Well, yeah. I just want to say one more thing before we go there. Another thing my father would say, World War II vet, North Africa, Italy, Sicily. He said, I may not agree with you, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it.
I agree.
And we're forgetting that.
Yes.
So this would happen to me a lot. I worked with some interesting characters, colorful characters in the motorcycle industry. And this guy was using some flowery language, and he was quite emotional. And I remained unemotional and said, I take umbrage at your tone. And it totally disarmed him. He wanted me to fight with him, and I wasn't going to fight with him. So he didn't. So I always say, you ever play King of the Hill where you're on top of the dirt pile?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you have that higher ground, you got an advantage, right?
Yeah.
But what do people want to do? They want to drag you down to their level. So
Right. That's good. I've heard the First Amendment is the ability of allowing someone to stand on a box and scream stuff that just makes your blood curl.
Right.
And allowing that person to do it.
Right.
And I think you're right. I think there are respectful ways, but nowadays it seems like it's just been so polarized and so much change has happened. The communications that we have here at Felician University, Mr. Gage, is it better, worse than the other schools? Is it more cumbersome? Is there something we could do for the students, for people applying online? What could we do better here?
What can we do better here for communications?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I think our communications, so we do, so I'm going to go into the marketing aspect of it for what we do. We communicate with students many, many different ways. We use email, we use text messaging, we use phone, which, I think that's a new thing that's coming back. We've had students say, oh, you actually called me.
Yeah.
We
I
say,
mean, my
"Oh, you
students
actually
have my
picked up the
textbook
phone."
on their phone.
Yeah.
How cool is
they
that?
text and everything. So we kind of communicate with students. We try to get to students on their level.
Right.
And what works best from them. I mean, we're working on our social media. It's something that I'd like for us to improve. And we have a team that's working on that started last week.
Now that just gives it to a quick question.
Yeah.
Is our client the student or is our client the parents?
Both.
So you have a two-sided market.
So
if
we
you will.
work with a bunch of different people as our clients. Our main client is the student, right?
Right.
And then it's the folks that we work with outside of that who are the influencers.
Right.
Number one, influencers
Very
are
good.
usually mom, dad,
Yep.
grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, everybody that plays a role in their life, whoever's the most important to them. And then guidance counselors play a huge role in it as well. So we work with the guidance counselors too, because guidance counselors, a student's going to go to them if they're possibly a first generation, or maybe mom or dad doesn't have the answer, or whoever they're living with, aunt, uncle, grandma, grandpa. They go to their guidance counselor and say, I'm looking for a good school for blank program.
Right.
So we work with our guidance counselors to tell them how that we take care of our students and the education that we offer them as well.
So you want to get to the people, the students and the parents.
Right.
So it's kind of like a double whammy. It gets kind of expensive too through the marketing.
It does.
Felician University is more of a one-on-one, a touchy-feely. Would you agree with that? You guys have a lot of right.
I would say it's
more
very
of a one-on-one,
hands-on.
Right.
Yep, one-on-one.
So is it better to do more of a local 50, 100-mile range, go meet the guidance counselors from each high school? Because every guidance counselor that I've talked to or even professor really doesn't know about Felician University.
Yeah. So we do that. We go out to guidance counselors in the fall travel season. We visit almost every high school in northern and central Jersey to meet with guidance counselors and tell them about us. The challenge with guidance counselors is they have so much going on. A high school may have 5 guidance counselors and 4,000 students.
Wow.
And we're one of how many schools in the country that are going to that high school trying to recruit those students. So we do both. We go to them, and then we also invite them here. You met many of them at our guidance counselor event.
That was great.
We run that every year. We've also recently started a guidance counselor advisory board to our admissions office.
Oh, wow.
Which we thought was a great idea, and our director of undergraduate admissions is running that, and they're going to meet for the first time in March to get a better feel of what do they need, what do guidance counselors need to help students make great decisions, and it's not just for us, but for every school.
So Dr. Christofalo went to high school. I went to my alma mater in Felician Queens.
That's right.
Bayside, Flushing, Queens.
Yep.
And we're going again in, I think, March.
Yep.
I think we all have to be, everybody, faculty, staff, admin, everybody has to be a prophet, a crusader, a salesperson to get this to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. You know what? I went to my Passaic Valley High School in Little Falls, New Jersey. I went with you.
Yeah, that's
Steve.
right. I went with
And
you.
it was great.
Yeah.
3 people actually showed up at our event.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about the open house event. We were talking about entrepreneurship. We were talking about the iLab, and that iLab is really coming together. It's looking really beautiful.
It's going to be fantastic.
And you know, another thing is through communications is like an organizational chart. I remember when I came here at Felician, Steve and I are both, you know, hey, I need something. Okay, here, let's go get it. And then, you know, we get called into the principal's office. And, there's certain ways. And
You broke protocol.
right, I remember when I went to Wall Street. And I was at that company, and I did an organizational chart because the president kept saying, God, I am so busy, I'm so busy, I'm so busy. And then I talked to all 72 employees. Every one of them communicated with him. There was no business unit leaders. There was nothing. I feel like that I'm here, right? Like every time I get an email, it's got like 90 people on the email, and I'm asking permission from 90 people. I mean, how could we streamline things at a university? I'm asking both of you guys on a professional level too. How can we streamline things to make it better?
Well, what I used to do when and forgive me, BMW corporate in Woodcliff Lake, but that was notorious for kicking the can down the road and not taking any responsibility. You got 13 people on an email. Right?
Right.
So what I would do, I would just say, call me. I wouldn't even respond to the email. I would say, just let's meet, and either would drop. You know, it's like throwing a ping pong against a rug, you know, or it would bounce back. So, you know, that's
great.
That's a way of doing it.
Yeah.
But, you know, this digital communication is dangerous.
What do you think about emails? I mean, you came into my office yesterday and said, stop with the emails. so I have, and his lovely wife said the same thing. Stop with the emails.
Stop with the email. I tell people all the time, whoever invented email should be dragged out into the street and like run over with a car and then backed over again. It's just,
Well,
email etiquette is not there.
Here's my motto. You write the email in Word.
Oh,
You write and read it the next day, and if it's still worth sending, go for it.
Go
but
for it.
We write it in. I do this all the time. I write it in Word, and I sit on it for 24 hours, and then the next day it's like, I'm not going to send this.
restraint of tongue and pen.
Yeah, you have to do that, especially if you're writing something that is reactive. If you're asking for things,
knee-jerk.
The knee-jerk emails, you never, ever, ever, ever send those.
And so we have 2 minutes left. I really want you to talk to the students, Mr. Gage, about social media and what it can do to their life.
Sure. So social media, I think you have to be very, very careful with your social media, right? We have hired people based on their credentials, and then at other schools that I've looked at, we've looked at someone's social media and said, maybe we don't want this person representing us. And I think all students have to be aware of that, right? If it goes out there on the web, it exists for all eternity. Yeah. It doesn't go away. And that's the thing with social media, right? Because the things that the students are doing, I don't think they're anything different than previous students have done in the 2000s, the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, the 60s. But when you put something out on social media, you're publicizing it for the entire world to see. And that comes back. Just like pictures. I mean, look at the gentleman down in Virginia. That's the governor of Virginia.
Optics.
It's A, that's wrong.
35 years later,
but
though,
B,
right?
35 years later, this is going to ruin him. And he made a bad decision back then. But it's still going to haunt him 35 or 40 years later. So that's a key lesson right there. And if you can't see that, then we've got other problems going on.
Professor Serge, what are your thoughts?
I thank God that there was no social media when I was growing up, because things happened to my friends and they'd be in the newspaper for 24 hours at best, if anybody even saw it. Now this is like, and the optics are terrible. You could be doing something that portrays a visual that is not the way you feel. So very, very scary stuff.
You have just spent another wonderful half hour with Professor Serge and myself, Douglas Muir. with Felician Business Talk, FBT. Once again, we want to thank you for that. Hey, we got a live show coming up next Tuesday, February 19th at 10:30 a.m. You can call in 201-340-4374. That's 201-340-4374. Felician Business Talks.